While at Huawei's launch for their camera-centric P20 Pro in Paris, we got to compare its camera against the Pixel 2 XL, which we posted yesterday. Today, we're putting it up against Samsung's S9 Plus in the short space of time we've had, and we're going to compare both the camera's photo capturing abilities. In this first picture of a plant outside our hotel, the Galaxy S9 has a more natural looking image over the P20 Pro and retains better detail in the shadows. The P20 Pro seems a bit over-sharpened compared to the S9 Plus version. Next is a picture of a local street where both phones perform well. Both seem to lose the highlights in the sky but have similar color tones, even though I prefer the slightly cooler look of the P20 Pro, which also does retain more detail in the background of the image. Now in this image of the car, both phones perform on par, but the P20 Pro does capture a little more detail on the raindrops and seems to produce a shallower depth of field. But the highlights are way better on the S9 Plus. Now let's be honest, you can't be in Paris and not capture the iconic Eiffel Tower. This was captured at 40 megapixels on the P20 Pro, and the sheer detail and dynamic range is insane. Compared to the S9 Plus, the P20 Pro's picture is definitely a notch above. Yes, pun intended. Now on to portrait mode. I feel both phones are doing a good job with edge detection, but the P20 Pro's image looks better composed with more accurate colors. The blur on the P20 Pro is also impressive, whereas on the S9 Plus it's not very noticeable. At 5x zoom on the portrait mode, the S9 Plus's image seems a tad bit brighter than the P20 Pro's. To add, even the detailing on the S9 Plus picture is slightly better compared to the P20 Pro. And even when you take it up to 10x zoom, I must say the S9 Plus is doing a very good job of maintaining detail. But overall, the P20 Pro has more detail in both the balcony in the foreground and in the blue bricks in the background. Transitioning to a darker scene, both phones are hard to tell apart. The S9 Plus again seems to have taken a brighter picture, and in doing so has lost the details in the clouds, but the P20 Pro manages to retain. But in doing so, it may seem a bit darker and less appealing to the general person. Now when we're looking at taking a picture indoors like of this plant, both phones have the background blown out, but the P20 Pro has it better controlled over the S9 Plus. However, exposure of the subject on the S9 Plus seems better than the P20 Pro. Using portrait mode in this scenario, I feel the S9 Plus does a better job at the picture producing a shallower depth of field and keeping the subject well exposed. In this case, the S9 Plus seems to maintain highlights better as well. Looking at this next indoor shot, the S9 Plus seems to be doing a better job than the P20 Pro. But when night mode is enabled on the P20 Pro, its quality improves drastically. The detailing on the table and the text in the background is much more legible than the one on the S9 picture. In a trickier scenario, once again, the P20 Pro seems to have done a better job of retaining the foreground detail over the S9 Plus. At the same time, the P20 Pro has also maintained a good level of detail in the background, and slightly more so than the S9 Plus. I wanted to try both cameras in pitch black too, where initially the S9 Plus seems to be the clear winner. But with AI enabled, the P20 Pro manages to capture a lot more detail than its previous image. And if you take that a further step ahead, while enabling night mode as well as AI, the P20 Pro seems to do a far better job in maintaining details such as those on the bricks. To wrap things up, let's look at selfies. Here I do feel like the P20 Pro is doing a better job at maintaining dynamic range and detail over the S9 Plus, whose blues seem a bit washed out. But when taking a portrait selfie, both phones seem to be on par with each other. The P20 Pro has a much shallower depth of field over the S9 Plus and more detail thanks to the higher megapixel count. However, both phones do a great job at edge detection, where there is just no issue with it whatsoever, and there is an absolutely consistent blur. We hope that through these samples, you've got a better understanding of how each of these phones take pictures. We'll be doing a full video comparison soon with both these phones, so stay tuned for that. And if you've missed our previous videos and comparisons with the Google Pixel 2 XL, please do check that out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.